Force abilities. Vader is born of the Force, and his potential may one day make him equal or even more powerful than the likes of ancient Sith and Jedi. Even if Sidious considered him a damaged good, Vader still wields power unimaginable to most, and his failing in overall Force abilities is mostly restricted by his inner conflict rather than physical capabilities. This is a problem he will not have in combat. Vader used Force Choke against non-Force sensitives and Jedi with relative ease, and is shown to have choked his victims from very far away. Vader is able to shield himself from explosions, tons of rocks, and Force attacks, tanking explosion from Kyber Crystal Mountain, used Force to move objects with gesture to defeat his opponents, sending them flying back. Without his arms, Vader cannot use Force Lightning, and his suit is vulnerable to Force Lightning. However, his endurance and Force Shield can support him against even Sidious Lightning for a short time, and he has more powerful skills such as Force Choking, shocking waves to destroy an entire army. Vader could also use the Force to tame great beasts and throw his lightsaber in a deadly way which nearly never missed. Vader is also shown to have wiped out an entire army of Curtis of Sith Internal using their own weapons, showing great mastery of the Force. He may lack specific skills, but he is indeed a very powerful Sith warrior. Unlike Vader, Zannah lives up to her full potential and have manifested great feats in her yawns, tanking a Force storm that nearly ravages the surface of Rusong after the explosion of a salt bomb, exploding the arm of her brother and choked 2 Jedi Knights to death with relative ease. It is completely reasonable to scale Zannah above that Force Storm or more powerful Force Storms in her prime, since her Force abilities only grow through the year, being able to break the Force shield of Darth Bane and sending him flying across the prison space. The Force battle between Darth Bane and Darth Zannah needs to be scaled on her achievement as a child and consider their Force attacks more deadlier in single combat than the Force Storm summoned by the Brotherhood of Darkness and the Sound Bomb. Zannah does not show skills in Force Lightning, but this could be argued that she knew she would never match Bane in this art, so there is no point of using it, just like Bane never used Force attacks on Zannah until her shield is broke by his Force Scream. Zannah's art of sorcery may not reach the heights of Exar Kun or Marka Ragnos, but she still wields 2 of the most powerful Force attacks of the galaxy, Spell of Madness and Dark Side Tendrils. People like to argue that individuals with strong willpower or inner peace can overcome the spells easily, which is definitely not the case. Strong will is what keeps her victims from falling into madness instantly. It does not ensure their escape, and it requires great strength to break such spell. If the individual is not well learned in Sith sorcery as Zannah does, they will definitely be influenced, and their fear will be discovered with much more immense power than that of a memory walk. Yoda and Windu alike fear the downfall of their order and the loss of their brothers and sisters, while Valkorian, Vitiate, and Sidious alike fear death and losing their power. This spell is not difficult for Zannah to conjure, and she is able to cast Mirage and spells of invisibility with no difficulties. Darkside Tendrils is one of the most powerful Force attack, and it is in a way better even than the lightning of Vitiate and Sidious, for their lightning could be stopped by a lightsaber. The manifestation of the dark side can pass through lightsaber blade, and is not influenced by even the powerful Sith lightning of Darth Bane. One touch from the tendrils is able to knock Bane out, as if it is the touch from Oblivion of the Force. A similar description is only found in the effect of Rachel Nesimer, in which Darth Vitiate consumed the Force energy of an entire planet. However, she did not use the technique in places different from Emperor, where darkside energy is buried under the lake, and you surely tell how powerful she have become. Even if they're in another nexus of darkside energy, she will be able to use it and defeat a Darth Bane amped by the same energy. People would say this battle as the battle between warrior and the witch. a sorceress, but it is actually not the case. All the basic skills of force attacks of Vader, we can say the same of Zannah, and since she is able to defend herself from a planetary force storm in a young age, and she have trained to be much more powerful ever since, any force attacks from Vader may not be able to kill her or even harm her in Zannah's prime. On the other hand, Zannah's force abilities is able to attack the disturbed mind of Vader with ease, whether it is through memory work of his past, or disturbing mirage of his loved ones, or applying the spell of madness, which will have Vader suffers with no knowledge to escape. Vader could try to break it with force scream like Bane do, but Bane certainly have more skills and strength in this art to manifest lightning and blasts, and Bane have already settled his fear for his father a long time ago, while Vader is always suffering from his loss and his fear of Obi-Wan and Palpatine. The more time it takes for Vader to escape the spell, the harder it becomes, and he will definitely use more time than that of Darth Bane, and his mind will eventually be damaged, if not completely destroyed. Verdict: Zannah with dark tendrils is too overpowered for 99% of Jedi and Sith in the history of this galaxy, and Vader's application of these artifacts is just not so impressive. It is more fair to have them fight on a neutral ground, because even with dark-side issues amping Vader, he will have no means to defend himself against dark-side tendrils should Zannah lash out at him at once. As they engage, Vader will be the aggressive one with his more experienced combat skills and mastery of attacking methods, and I believe Zannah will give him the leading ground after witnessing his prowess and fall back to her comfort zone of defensive style. However, as time passes by, the fight will lean more into battle force, because Vader will realize he cannot overcome her with simple skills, and Zannah will always use any chances to apply her magic. Whether it is Vader who launch a force attack or Zannah create a mirage, the outcomes will nearly be the same. Zannah will tank his attack and send a burning wave of her own to break Vader's shield and create more gap between them, or her mirage of his dying wife, his mother, and past life will have Vader stilled for a moment, and with a mighty force wave that crushes the shield of Darth Bane, and Stonewalls will end this game, or a cut of her lightsaber to the throat, or on his mask. Vader could manage to survive this, letting out a great force wave and threw objects around as soon as Zannah casts the mirage, and he will likely succeed because of his immense power to stop Zannah causing more mirage, and then he may be cut down by Zannah's shielded invisible spell, which have the effect of lasting 10 years and nearly breaking the mind of a huntress who is able to tank the mind attacks from Darth Bane and block him from his force abilities. So Vader will likely fall to the trick unless he is able to sustain his force attacks and break Zannah out of her invisible state. It is also possible that Zannah will cast the spell of madness on Vader, who does not know how to counter the attack but struggling in all memories, fantasies of pain, despair, and anguish while suffering from the mind attack itself. Since he will definitely fall further than Bane should he ever overcome the spell, Zannah will have more time to generate a more powerful force wave than that she sends to Bane, or break the limbs, marks, and heart of a defenseless Vader with force wound. The early fight will be led out but not dominated by Vader, because Zannah will likely manage to defend perfectly with several withdrawals or fallbacks, but once a gap between the lightsaber appears, her various force abilities will distract Vader and defend herself from his force attacks. He will soon fall if he cannot apply his immense raw powers and break through Zannah's spell, as well as distracting her from taking him by surprise. But such interaction will likely give Zannah enough time to cast a spell of madness, which will eventually break his mind or take even longer time to leave him defenseless. This is where we will reach our final conclusion, that Zannah will very likely win the battle, whether Vader have the chance to unleash his full power or not, for her overall force abilities and skills will overwhelm him this way or another. The verdict of this fight is evident in their own personality, experience, and cosmic importance. Zannah is the first heiress of the Being's lineage, and her master have made sure she learned all she could and he could not. She have relatively weak bound to loved ones and have submitted to the career of Sith when she sent her cousin to die. Her entire life is about preserving the Sith heritage, and she is, in the end, a perfect Sith to inherit Darth Bane's legacy. Vader have a more distracted and painful life, for he actually did not choose to be a Sith and is tortured by his inner conflicts through his life. His bond with his families eventually led him back to the light, and he have received much less teachings from Emperor Palpatine, who killed his master in sleep rather than in a fair combat. Vader is never as much as a Sith as Zannah was. His Force potential never fully discovered, and his mind have never reached the stage of utilizing anger and hatred as weapons like Darth Malgus or Emperor Palpatine. In short, Zannah is the perfect beginning of Rule of Two Sith, and her devotion to the cause and her skills in ancient art makes her one of the most perfect incarnation of the dark side, although she is likely not the most powerful Sith ever lived. Vader, on the contrary, marks the final failure of Zannah's legacy, a tortured soul uncertain to his own motivations and was oppressed by a master who never intended to fully fulfill his responsibility as a master. It is from Zannah to Vader that the Sith Order went into extinction. In some sense, she symbolized the expectation of Rule of Two, while he symbolized their final degradation, failure, and destruction.